The New York Jets report to One Jets Drive today as training camp is underway in less than 24 hours. In order to help me break it down, I had to bring in one of the best. New York Daily News beat writer Antwan Staley will join me on the other side of it. So let's get into it.
We want you to bring that here, all right? Go up there and press them and choke them out.
What is going on, Jets fans? Dylan Terman back. Second day in a row with a live stream. This time I will be joined by a guest. The great Antwan Staley from the New York Daily News is going to join us in just a second. But first, I do have to shout out you guys in the chat. We're over that 500 subscriber mark. We're on the road to 1K subs, as you see right here in the byline. I still need those watch hours up so we can monetize the channel, get the channel memberships, the super chats, get the merch store so you guys can start rocking some DT t-shirts as well. So had to get that out of the way. Just need the watch hours. So I'm going to be going live today and tomorrow as well, trying to ramp up the live streams on the channel for you guys. But less than 24 hours away from training camp officially kicking off and the Jets taking the practice field. So I had to call in one of the best, Antwan Staley of the New York Daily News. He joins us now. Antwan, thank you so much for joining. The first beat writer on the channel officially. So a little bit of an accolade for you there, but thank you so much for giving me some of your time tonight.
Yeah, it's no problem.
And I mentioned it to you earlier off screen that we met in the Senior Bowl about 2 years ago. I know you go there just about every year. This year upcoming will be my 5th year, so I hope to see you again out there. But we have met, and now we are officially doing a live format together. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Let's just hop right into it. 6 months ago, Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji were hired by the Jets. They had a lot of big personnel decisions to make on this roster. Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, seemingly the entire special teams with Greg Zuerlein and Thomas Morstead no longer being here. CJ Mosley also cut, the veteran linebacker. So what are your overall impressions for the first 6 months of the Glenn and Muji regime? And is this something that is kind of part for the course as you imagined it, or have they done things that may have surprised you?
I mean, it's been a youth movement. That's basically what it's been ever since they've got there. They want young players. They're not scared to play young players. And, I think it goes back to just kind of Aaron Glenn's background. You look at, him being a scout and understanding like, sometimes you need to play younger players. And you see a lot of these college guys, especially nowadays. Heck, you got the best player in college football. He's a sophomore. I mean, Jeremiah Smith, and then you got Ryan Williams with Alabama, also a sophomore. So, I mean, you got talented guys this early on in their college career just contributing. And, why can't you do that in the NFL? And I think, Aaron Glenn saw that as a scout and just, as he went on and, saw the talent on other teams that he was on and decided, him and Muji decided that's the best approach. And, we'll have to wait and see what the results may turn out to be. But as far as anything surprising me, no. I figured, all the veterans were going to go anyway. Like the Jets tried, to go the veteran route. Obviously, it didn't work for a variety of different reasons. But, at the end of the day, somebody's going to come in, clean house, and that typically what's happening. And, we'll have to see what, happens with Aaron Glenn and, his first year on the job.
Yeah, it always seems like there's a large amount of roster turnover with the new regime. I was, quite frankly, an advocate of the youth movement. I did want Aaron Rodgers to return, but after you see the dominoes fall in the places that they do, they land Justin Fields. It makes their star wide receiver and Garrett Wilson very happy to be reunited with his college teammate. It really goes a long way to show that they don't really care about the outside noise and what we think about the roster. They're going to do it their way. And I am glad that they are going the youth movement, because for somebody who is compared to Bill Parcells, his mentor, Bill Parcells didn't play the rookies a lot, right? So for Aaron Glenn not to be scared to play the young guys, and we have, possibly 2 or 3, if not 4 rookie guys this year who could be contributors at some point this season, I think it goes a long way to establishing a culture of we want young upside players instead of maybe some of these aging veterans.
And I'll say this too, real quick. I just think that, this is the year to play the young players because, like, I don't think I don't think anybody has any expectations on the Jets this year. I honestly, I probably think they're probably 6 or 7 win team, maybe at best. Like, I think that's probably got a good range for them. I think they could struggle early on, especially with the tough schedule. They have a really brutal schedule to start out the year. I mean, honestly, they could, you could say they could. I don't think they'll start 0-4, but realistically, I don't know if they're going to be favored in any of those games. But you know, it's going to be a tough road. But yeah, I think now you want to play. That's where you want to play the young guys, just to see what they have, and then see if they can be potential building blocks for the future.
Yeah, this is, I want to say, not a carbon copy of 2021 when Salah came in and he had no choice but to play the young guns. But in this case, when they're choosing to play the young guys, you could still find your Michael Carter the seconds, right? He came out of that 2021 class and he really boomed at nickel. So sometimes playing, excuse me, the young guys doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Sure, you have your lumps here and there, but I feel like for the most part, you like I said, with the upside, the young players, you're able to find what you have for the future as opposed to, okay, well, this aging guy is good, but how long do we have him for? This time you can see what he is for the long term. So it's not 2021 exactly, but that discovery of the roster with the regime is similar, although there is a lot more talent on it.
Yes, absolutely.
So today, three players talked to the media. You were there. It was Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, and Quinnen Williams, who, in my opinion, are top three like shoe-ins to be team captains this year for the Jets. It would be the first time for Sauce and Garrett. Quinnen has already been a captain on this team. Was there anything that stuck out to you specifically about what they said today? This is the first time we heard Sauce and Garrett publicly speak since their mega deals, the contract extensions. And I guess for me, the one thing was they all mentioned a win, like we want to win. It was less me, it was more we as a team. And everybody mentioned wanting to win. Quinnen saying, let's win more than 7 games. Garrett says meaningful football in December and January. And Sauce says, yeah, the personal accolades are great, but I want to help this team be better. And the coaches are putting us in the best position to win. So what stuck out to you today about those guys speaking?
Well, first off, that I didn't know that it was Sauce and Garrett that came to terms on the same day. So that was the first thing
Mm,
that kind of stuck out, which I thought it made sense that Sauce said he wanted his own day and Garrett to have his own day because yeah, just don't want to take away from somebody's shine. So that was the first thing that kind of stuck out. In terms of just what they had to say, I know I'd asked Sauce like, so okay, now what's next after this new contract? And basically said, I want to be the best. And then broke down, he did talk about some of the team accolades, but best person, like the best cornerback in football. I think that's his goal now. And there's been a lot of chirping about, his place and, the order of the best cornerbacks in football. And I think he's heard a little bit of that. And, I think he's going to be heavily motivated to do so. But yeah, Garrett, obviously, the losing this, and also Quentin, the losing has got to them at times, but ultimately, they want to win. Like they're starving for a winner. Like they thought the last couple of years were going to be easy. They were going to be coasting to the playoffs, but obviously that didn't happen. And now it's a new regime, and they have some new life, and they're ready to see if they can get this thing turned around.
Yeah, and sticking with Sauce, I believe it was Zach Rosenblatt tweeted out that Sauce mentioned blitzing and playing in the slot more, just different ways to get him involved, traveling with the number one receivers, which I think Jets fans have been clamoring for since he entered the league in 2022. So when you talk about him playing in the slot and traveling, potentially even blitzing, what do you think about Sauce as far as like the expectations? Do you think he is still going to reclaim that status as a top 2 or 3 cornerback, which I believe he is? I think it's Pat Surtain and Sauce Gardner. Those are the top two. But the national media probably doesn't feel that way collectively. So do you think this will be the year where he goes back and could compete to be an all pro and get back into form?
I still think he's a top 5 corner. I mean, I think you can, make the argument. Yeah, definitely Sertan is definitely one by far. I think he's proven that win the defensive player of the year. Like, yeah, you're that good. So outside of that, I mean, I think it's the debate for number 2. I know a lot of people talk about Stingley, but I think Sauce hears the noise and I definitely think, it's going to be a benefit to have a guy that's played the corner position in Aaron Glenn that knows how to use him. And also Steve Wilks, he's also a creative defensive coordinator who can put him in, unique situations. And also worked with, really good corners there too, as well, his time around the league. So yeah, I think he is in a really beneficial situation, and I think he's going to flourish and, really, be that Pro Bowl, all pro player once again.
Yeah, I think there's legitimate reason for optimism with Sauce Gardner. I think 3 times this summer or spring, he said the coaches are going to put me in the best position to win. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a shot at Saleh or Ulbrich or the old regime, but it seems like this regime is making a concerted effort to make Sauce and Garrett the focal points of their football team and use their best players to win them football games instead of, okay, go cover this half of the field. And if they don't put the number one wide receiver on your side, just go lock up the number two. It seems like they're actually going to make sure Sauce is the contributor for some of these wins. And it might come with some lumps, obviously, but I love the fact that they're centralizing their focus around their top guys in Sauce and Garrett.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
the moving on with Garrett Wilson, obviously he talked about winning, playing meaningful games. His wide receiver room as a whole is very bleak outside of him, right? So I'm going to give you 3 potential competitions in camp, and I want to see who you think right now. Obviously, they haven't put the pads on yet, but who do you think will win at these position battles? So wide receiver 2 outside of Garrett, who do we think is going to be that guy?
I mean, that's up for debate. I guess if I had to go right now, and like I say, that don't put this in pen because, like I say, it could go either way. But I had to go with Josh Reynolds. I just think the coaching staff has a little bit of faith in him. He's a veteran, and it makes sense to have somebody that's older in that position there, especially when you have so much uncertainty there at the wide receiver position. But yeah, that's probably who I would go with right now. It's definitely a very thin room, so they can't afford any injuries whatsoever.
Yeah, and I believe it was Rich Samini who tweeted or put out an article a couple weeks ago saying Reynolds is the clear cut guy. Obviously, things could change in the month of August, but I agree it would probably be Reynolds on the outside looking in until somebody overthrows him as number 2. The second position battle is opposite of Quinn and Williams at defensive tackle 2. I know a lot of people like myself, like Leonard Taylor the third. Some people were hyped up about Derek Noddy and what he was able to do for Chris Jones in Kansas City. The coaching staff and the beat reporters were tweeting a lot about Byron Cowart during OTAs and minicamp. So it seems like that position is really up for grabs, maybe more so than wide receiver 2. But who do you think is ultimately that guy next to Quinn Williams in the middle?
Well, I'll say this: I think it's not going to be just one guy. I think they're going to be a rotational guys that's used. But Nami, I think he'll probably be the main guy that's used at least right away because obviously you got the veteran leadership there, and what he doesn't necessarily bring a ton of stats. He doesn't jump out with the board at you, but is a really smart player. Has been a contributor for a long time, and again, you're building the program. You need players like that, so I probably would go with him as far as early on anyway.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I think, like you said, it's not going to necessarily be one person. In certain packages, you're going to have Nandi. In certain packages, you're going to have Cowart. In certain packages, you might have Fedarian Mathis or Leonard Taylor the third. So I think that's good. A good call out. Probably Nandi right now, and then we'll see what happens in like sub packages. And then the third one, this is a competition I personally don't believe in. Obviously, you're there. You're up close and personal with it, but they're pushing this center competition with Joe Tippmann and Josh Myers a lot, right? Muji's talked about it, Glenn's talked about it. I think even John Simpson talked about it in one of his press conferences. So, do you believe in the center competition, and who do you think is going to ultimately win that one?
Yeah, it's real. They definitely when they sided Myers, like they said, yeah, you have an opportunity to win the job. That doesn't mean he's going to win the job, but that's kind of the thought process. Like so to have a competition, but ultimately, I think it's going to be Joe Tip, and I think Joe had a really good season last year. I won't say great, but I think probably the best season of his early on career, and I think coming into like obviously they had the snap situation in training camp and a lot of people were a lot of talk about that, but he was a stable force in that Jets offensive line, which I thought was you know average last year, but like it's better than what it has been. So now, like I said, I think the offensive line is a lot better, and I think he's going to be, possibly one of the captains on that offensive line too as well. So yeah, I have to go with Tippin.
That's a huge call out that he could be a captain, because I don't think a lot of people think about Joe Tippmann as that captain type guy. But I think PFF even had him ranked as a top 10 center last year, maybe even number 8, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
somewhere around there. Yeah.
So he's definitely up there in the upper half of the league at his position, which, I mean, continuing some not even linear growth, but just any progression from Joe Tippmann would be huge. And I know there's some guard flexibility there. People have talked about putting Myers at center, then you kick Tippmann out to guard and AVT out to right tackle if Membu's struggling or somebody gets hurt. I'm not a fan of moving all these guys around. Just keep them at their natural positions. Joe Tippmann, he didn't really play a ton of guard in college, I don't believe at all. Maybe like his first year at Wisconsin. I don't. He played a little bit for the Jets, but I'm just
Yeah, he
an
has. Yeah,
advocate.
he's played some guard. Yeah, I think he
Yeah,
did a good job too.
yeah, he did solid, right? But I'm an advocate of sticking everybody at their natural positions and letting them go through the lumps there. So
I'll
I'm
say
glad.
this though, like we've seen the worst case scenario with the Jets offensive line in multiple years, so it's good to make sure you have backup plans on top of backup plan, because in case for the worst case scenario where you end up having 11 different players on your offensive line, or you end up having 14 different combinations in 17 games.
I was just gonna say, what was that, 2023, the year Rodgers got hurt? It seemed like a different combination every week, and it was like, yeah, 14 combinations over the season. That's just not sustainable. So you need to be at least 7, probably 8 offensive linemen deep. So if Josh Myers just ends up being a quality backup, I think that's great, because the interior is already a strength for the Jets offensive line. So now to have a fourth guy in the rotation is just gonna go a lot further if you do suffer that injury. All right, moving on. This last question here is the last football related question I have, uh, based on people. Then the next question I have will be about the coaches. So, Antwan, what are your X factors? I want one on offense, one offensive player, one defensive player, and if you want to give an honorable mention in each category, you can. But this is something I asked Will Parkinson and Buffalo when they were on my pods earlier this summer. But give me one guy on offense that's a bit of an X factor for you, and then one guy on defense. And if you want to throw in an honorable mention, you can as well.
I say offense. I definitely would say Mason Taylor. I think he has an opportunity to be the second leading like pass catcher for the Jets
Mhm.
this year. I think either it'll be him or Brees Hall, because I think I think Justin Fields is gonna it's gonna be times where he's gonna need to dump the ball off, and those two are really good security blankets. So, and obviously we talked about the uncertainty at the wide receiver position, and those guys have some really good hands. So I definitely think Mason Taylor definitely on the offensive end. Defensively, I would say Zalius Thomas. They can make some noise. I think they got had some really good value getting him in the third round, and not I'm not saying Brandon Stevens is going to be a bust or anything. Obviously, we knew he struggled last year, and then even in OTAs, there'd be times where he would struggle a little bit too. So, like I would say, Thomas is a guy that I think you're going to be able to come in, stick in at the cornerback 2 position potentially, and maybe be your long term solution there opposite Sauce Gardner. I think he has that much talent, and very similar type builds there. So just imagine those guys, lengthy guys getting their hands on you for 4 quarters like that. That could be a bit of a challenge. So I definitely think he's a guy that somebody to watch out for.
Yeah, we mentioned it at the top. We both go to Mobile almost every year for the Senior Bowl, and AZ Thomas was there, and he kind of showed out. He had a rough first day on Tuesday, but Wednesday and Thursday he was pretty sticky in coverage. So we go back to the Sauce thing. If they put Sauce in the slot and they have Brandon Stevens and AZ Thomas on the perimeter locking up the boundary wide receivers, I mean, that could be a potentially really fun wrinkle. Obviously, you take off Michael Carter the second, who is a damn good nickel in his own right. Maybe you move him back to safety, but I do think the AZ Thomas addition, although it was very surprising, it was one of my favorite picks of the entire draft, but it also opens up your secondary for these variations, right? You could run big nickel, you could run dime with 4 corners.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of different things that AZ Thomas gives you the flexibility to do, because I feel like you're 6 or maybe even 7 deep if you consider Tony Adams a solid secondary player. So I do like the call out of AZ Thomas. Mason Taylor, I agree. He's in contention with maybe Breece Hall as the second leading pass catcher on the team. Would I be surprised if he was second in targets? No, absolutely not, because Justin Fields prioritizes his wide receiver one, and then he tends to prioritize his tight end one after that, right? Cole Kmet was the guy, and he had some decent success with Freiermuth last year in Pittsburgh. So Mason Taylor and AZ Thomas, both rookies, X factors, which I think is huge because, like we said, Parcells didn't play the rookies. Glenn is probably not going to, vibe with that strategy, and he's going to have to play the young guys at some point. So I love the AZ Thomas one there. This one is more based on the coaching, maybe even the front office. What are your expectations for Aaron Glenn and this coaching staff / front office in year one? The three things that I looked at when I'm trying to, evaluate Aaron Glenn are physicality, in-game management, and roster management. I feel like those three things were not very good with the last regime, and I want to see a market improvement in those three areas. So what are your, personal expectations for AG in year one?
Yeah, I expect them to have a physical team there, similar to what the Lion Dan Campbell did with the Lions too as well. Obviously Aaron Glenn was there. He saw what Dan did his first year, and like going on to the second year, and that was a big jump. You go from winning 3 games into to winning 9 the next year. So yeah, I think Aaron Glenn's still trying to follow that similar type of model there and bringing that physicality, whether it be on the offensive side of the ball, whether it be the defensive side of the ball. So that's one thing I do expect. Another one is, in-game adjustments. Like I expect, especially the coaching decisions. It just felt like at times with the previous regime with Sala or even Jeff Albrecht when he took over, like if they got behind a certain amount of points, like you knew they were going to lose because they just the lack of adjustments at times was just sometimes were just baffling. So like I'm curious to see like what Glenn and also you talk about Steve Wilkes there. You also talk about Tanner Strand, see what they can bring to the table in terms of that. Another like the last thing is just how many of these young guys can contribute like right away. Like I think like obviously, I think they had a really good draft there. I expect Mimbu to be a, good bookend tackle along with Olu Fashanu there for the next decade. You look at a guy like, we talked about Thomas, how good he is. I think, Smith is a guy I also think, somebody to watch out for too as well. So yeah, they got some talented guys. So I expect a lot of them to come in and contribute. And, I'm curious to see how big of a factor, how the way that they use those guys and how quickly they can bring them along.
Yep, I'm completely muted. Look at me. Rookie mistake there on the YouTube. Rookie mistake there by me. This is something I talked about, and I wanted to follow up just with the coaching staff because you said it. This is something I talked about with a fellow content guy, Nick Shine, on his show. Developmental coaches for this team. We haven't seen too many, right? We had Marquand Manuel, Tony Oden, Rutenberg, the linebackers coach. They were really good on the defensive side of the ball. Who would you say is the developmental coach for the offense? Could it be Scott Turner, Steve Hayden, the O-line coach, in his first full-time gig as the head of the offensive line? Is there a specific offensive positional coach, not just Tanner Engstrand, that we should maybe look at that he can, get the most out of his unit?
I'm not sure yet, but I think Hayden is a guy that definitely kind of sticks out too as well. Just kind of his background there. Whether you talk about him as a tight end or now working with the O line there, but yeah, I think he would probably be the guy. But I think we have to wait and see too because a lot of these guys are still new, and then we're still trying to figure that out as well. I will throw in, it could be possibly a guy like Sean Jefferson too as well, because again, like you have a lot of uncertainty with the wide receiver position, but. He's a guy that's everywhere he's went, he's gotten receivers to be produce and to play at a high level, and I expect that to continue.
Okay. Yeah, I think Sean Jefferson's a good one too. They held him over from the last coaching staff for a reason, right? Although it might not help Malachi Corley's chances of making the roster, it certainly speaks volumes of what they think of him as a developmental coach. And if not, I believe he was with Detroit for a year or so earlier
Yeah,
on in his
he's
career.
been everywhere. Like I've
Yeah.
covered him at two different places. So
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And
yeah.
I think that's a great call out. I think he can really try to get one of these guys outside of Garrett to play better than expectations. So we had just one quick question from the chat, and then I have one non-football question, and we'll get you out of here, Antwan. The question came from, I have it starred, K Brock. He says, who does Antwan think will be the kick and punt returners?
I like Pritchard. I think he's a guy that somebody to watch out for from Southern Alabama. I wouldn't be surprised if they were to keep him, at least even possibly stash him on the practice squad and then maybe bring him back on somehow, do some roster gymnastics. But the last guy that I really liked, they ended up trading him. So we're talking about Brandon Coddington, who I didn't want them to get
Yes.
rid of him either. But we'll see if they keep Pritchard this time. But I thought Coddington was a perfect punt returner, and then they end up trading them, and then guess what? They need a punt. They need a returner.
It's amazing how that happens, right? And now Codrington is in the
They
division
traded him
with
to the
Buffalo.
Bills too, by the
Yeah.
way.
Of all places, they go interdivision with a guy who has some upside, who can score points. It's like when you're struggling to score points, don't get rid of a guy who could potentially get you those points, right?
And guess what? They came back to bite him too.
Yes, he did have a big return against the Jets, didn't he?
Yeah, yes, he did.
Yep, I do remember that. Golly, it's full circle with the Jets at that point. So hopefully AG brings new vibes, the new locker room, get that old stench out, and hopefully luck is back on our side. All right, that's it for the football questions. I just had one non-football question. I teased it to you offline. You know what it is. I live in Spartanburg, South Carolina. My brother lives in Greensboro, North Carolina. I have to travel about 3 hours to get to his house, but I passed through Lexington, North Carolina, and you told me that is the spot to get barbecue. So on my next trip up to his house, where am I stopping in Lexington, New York, or North Carolina to get barbecue?
Well, it's simple. You will remember this when I tell you. It's called Lexington Barbecue. That's the name of the place.
I was going
Like
to
it's
write
just
it
that
down, but I
cool.
don't need to. That's
It's
easy.
just is that you can look at it online. Like it's a very simple old school place too. It's to me, it's my favorite barbecue place in the world. Like period.
Wow.
Like I love that type of style North Carolina barbecue. Although I
Mhm.
mean there are better barbecue places out there depending on what you're looking for. But as far as North Carolina style, to me that's the best.
Absolutely. Lexington barbecue. I will have to get you back on in a couple months, maybe mid-season. We can review some of the topics we talked about, and then I will give you my review of Lexington barbecue. So, Antwan, I greatly appreciate you hopping on. As like I said at the top, you're the first beat writer on the channel that I've had. Hopefully, the first of many interactions that we have, and I hope to get you back on soon. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
All right. That is Antwan Staley of the New York Daily News joining us here on the show. Got a good 25, 30 minutes from Antwan. That's great. I hope everybody, felt a little bit better going into this training camp tomorrow. Players reported today. First practice is tomorrow. So everybody was, you know, looking at the locker room, all the new high-tech upgrades that Woody Johnson piped into One Jets Drive that hopefully vibes turn to wins, right? That's what we're hoping for with the Jets this season. So with that, I'll hang out for another 15, 20 minutes or so, get us up close to that 1 hour mark, and I'll take any of your questions that you got. I am scrolling back up in the comments. I tried to pay attention while Antwan was talking, but I also wanted to make sure I was listening to Antwan. So I can't multitask quite yet. I'm learning. We're getting there, right? I did see a chat from Eli here, if I can pull it up. Let's see. Oh yeah, Eli. He says, Dylan, show us what's in the golf bag. All right, maybe we'll have to do that on another show. I'll have to, bring my golf bag in. It's in my car right now because I played earlier this morning. I played at a local par 3 course and I shot 32-32. So 5 over on the front 9, 5 over on the back 9. It's just a 9-hole course, so it's really the same 9 holes twice. But 32 was a really good score. That was my personal best at that course. I shot a 33 earlier this weekend at the same course, but really dialing in on my irons. But Eli, I will definitely make a note of that, and we will talk about what's in my golf bag soon. I was actually talking to one of my buddies. If I didn't do football content on YouTube, I would 1000% try to break into the YouTube golf space. I'm not that good yet. Like I barely break 100 on, regular par 70, par 73 courses. I'm barely breaking 100. I'm still shooting in the 105s. But that would have been the other avenue I went with the YouTube content, would have definitely been golf, because I have so much fun consuming golf content. And I feel like if you're not great at golf, people, they relate to that more. And if I'm shooting in the, low 90s, people will gravitate to that. So that was something that I did entertain on the channel. Boomtown, he has a question. He says, Dylan, who are your other sports teams? Baseball, basketball, hockey. So I'll be completely honest. I don't follow other sports quite in depth like I do football. I know a little bit about baseball. I don't follow it. Like I couldn't name like more than maybe 3 or 4 players on the Yankees, but I'd have to say the Yankees. Basketball would be the Miami Heat. Just a huge Dwayne Wade fan ever since he entered the league. And then it didn't, make things worse when they added Shaq. And, you're a kid and you're wearing Shaq shoes, and that he joins a team that already has your favorite player on it. So I've been a Heat fan for the long haul, but again, I don't really follow it. I know they've done some decent things, and now they're just kind of a middle of the pack team right now. But the Heat would be my basketball team, and then backup local for New Jersey, the hockey team, I would have to say the Devils. Again, I probably couldn't name one single person on the Devils unless what is it, Jack Hughes or whatever his name is. If he's still there, that'd probably be the only one I can name. So I don't follow these sports. I'm like, I'll watch, and I'll pay attention to scores and who wins the championships of all these, but it's really just like football and then like everything else. To be honest, I would say I have more of a rooting interest in golf, because I can just pick individuals each week and I'm not, tied to them every tournament. But good question there from Boomtown. Indy Jets, what's up, Indy? Appreciate you tuning in. He says, Dylan, what are your thoughts on the coaching staff all meshing in the new roles that have, and also together? All meshing. Okay, I'm going to try to decipher this. Coaching staff meshing the new roles that they have. All right, maybe I need a little bit more clarification on this one, Indy. But as far as like my thoughts on the coaching staff, I mean, I'm optimistic about the coaching staff. I want them to be given the benefit of the doubt before everybody poo-poos on them, even if it is an 0-2 start. Oh, meshing the roles that they have. I mean, the roles that they have are kind of the same, right? The offense is going to be, let's develop as much as we can. The defensive side of it, I feel like the roles are, let's not waste the talent that we have, right? I feel like the last regime didn't necessarily take advantage of the strengths of this team, being Quincy, Sauce, Quinnen, even DJ Reed to a degree, Michael Carter. I felt like they didn't put these guys in the best situation. So I guess the role that I hope they all have is putting these guys in a better position to win, or at least just be competitive, right? Papa Jet, shout out to you. Appreciate you in the chat. At DT, do you have faith in our O-line coach? I believe he was a tight end coach in the past. Yeah, so right coming to the Jets immediately following, he was the tight ends coach in Detroit. And then before that, he was the assistant offensive line coach in Arizona with the Cardinals. And I don't think they were a relatively good unit when he was the assistant O-line coach. So a lot of I guess inexperience there, but also can he help your tight ends at the same time? It's kind of like a twofer, right? Can Steve Hyden come in, put his hands on the O-line and get them playing better than Keith Carter did? Yes, I think that can definitely happen. And then you get an added bonus, and this is kind of my glass half full spin on Steve Hyden, is he comes from the background of tight ends. So can he get Rucker blocking like he was a couple years ago when he first entered the league under John Benton? Can he develop Stone Smart as more of your inline wide tight end instead of just your flexed out F tight end who's going to be more of a power slot option? Is he going to be able to help develop Mason Taylor, who should be attached to the offensive line more often than not, right? As like a pseudo sixth offensive lineman in the run game, but also somebody who can leak out in the pass game. So I guess my glass half full spin on Hayden is he can be a twofer with the O-line and the tight ends. But to say I have a great amount of faith, no, I definitely don't. I don't have a ton of faith in a lot of things right now with this team. I think if it wasn't for AG being the coach, I probably wouldn't have as much faith as I do now in the offensive coaching staff. The defensive coaching staff, I can get on board with more because I like Steve Wilkes. I like Dre Bly, Chris Harris. I like Aaron Curry, the linebackers coach that they added. So if it wasn't for AG, I would definitely have a lot less faith overall. But O-line, it's hard to say with any confidence that I have faith. All right. Any more questions here? I see 6 rings in the chat, spelling words wrong, including my name. How do you spell my name wrong, dude? It's all over the screen. He says, why were you guys so high on Wilson? He was ranked 27 in TD pumping receivers. I mean, if you're looking at it, are you talking about Garrett Wilson? Yeah, you got to be Garrett Wilson. If you're looking at just the touchdown output from Garrett Wilson, I mean, that's hard. That's not really something that is completely dependent on him. There's plenty of times where he's won at the line of scrimmage in the red zone and just wasn't targeted, both by Zach and Aaron Rodgers alike. And then there's plays where he has to tip it up to himself 3 times just to catch a pass in the end zone from Zach Wilson. So if you're looking at it from strictly the production of touchdowns with Garrett Wilson, you're not going to be too impressed, obviously. But I mean, look at the yards, look at the targets, look at the catching, and then look at the guys who are throwing him those passes. I mean, it's literal dog shit throwing to Garrett Wilson. So I'm not going to blame Garrett Wilson for a lack of touchdowns there. Bill M, shout out to you in the chat. He says, nice Sabbath album cover on the wall. Yep. Talked about this on Jake's show earlier today. This is a lithograph of Sabbath's first album. It's 106 out of 550 in the world, I believe. And these were distributed in like the late 70s, early 80s. So to say that there's 550 of these still out there in the world in the condition that mine are in, I would say that's very highly unlikely. So that would increase the value of this thing as well. But yeah, it's signed by Bill Ward, Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, and Prince of Darkness himself, Ozzy Osbourne, who obviously we know by now he passed away today, which is incredibly sad. I'm only 30 years old, but also, you listen to somebody who's been around and doing it for 20 years, 25 years before you were even born. It's unfortunate when the legends like this die, and it was sad. I'll be playing some Ozzy Osbourne on my ride when I get done here, as I normally take a little evening stroll to get out of the house, and I'll definitely be playing some Ozzy on that ride tonight, paying homage to him. I mentioned it on Jake's show also. I'm glad he was able to do his final show back to the beginning with Sabbath, and all those guys were rocking out. So definitely incredibly sad today. I got off the golf course and I saw the message on my phone, and I immediately called my stepdad and talked to him. He's the one that gave me this poster, and he was funny about it. He was like, I'm really glad that Post Malone gave him his 15 minutes of fame, which I thought was absolutely hilarious, because a lot of people younger than me think that Ozzy Osbourne was, helped by Post Malone with that one song that they did a couple years ago on Ozzy's album. So shout out to Ozzy, shout out to Sabbath. They are absolute legends, and it's going to be different waking up in the morning and not having Ozzy around. Whoa, we see some Jets content royalty in here. Paul Boy Green, Esden Jr. What's up, BG? Shout out to you. Road to 1K subs. What are you willing to do to get 1,000 subs, Dylan? Oh, man. I'll tell you what I'm not willing to do, and that's make this a call-in show just yet. I mentioned it yesterday. We'll make it a call-in show once the season starts and once football is actually being played, so that way we can keep it to more of a Jets-centric show for now, because I know eventually it's not going to be always Jets talk. So I don't know exactly what I'm willing to do, BG. I'm not willing to buy them. I'm not willing to buy subscribers. Not one single subscriber will be bought on this channel. I will do this organically, even if it takes longer than I anticipate. But I do think that this community is great enough that we will get to 1,000 before the home opener, which is what I'm striving for. Luppy in the chat. What's up, Lupp? Congrats, Dylan, on your Azzy Award. Yes, I'm very, very happy about that. Very surprised, to be honest. I've said it numerous times now. People are probably sick of me saying it. I did not expect to come in first. I expected a third place finish. I thought Jeff Parles with the longevity had that award locked up because people from a year ago could turn it on and say, oh, I know Jeff. Let's vote for him. And Fialco is just like a freaking whiz kid with his film breakdowns. If there's somebody that I would like to emulate my film reviews after, certainly Fialco, he's definitely deserved. And then Will Parkinson, I mean, he's more plugged in than any other guest, maybe not named Robbie Sabo on that show, in my opinion. So I thought the odds were stacked against me, but, you know, we ended up winning. And I didn't have to come on yesterday and campaign for votes. I woke up a little late in the afternoon and saw I was up in the voting. So glad that came to fruition. I was happy about that. Waiting on Jake to send me my award so I could put it right up on the shelf here by Klecko and Brees Hall. Let's see if we got any more chats. Would I, mother effing shoe, would I shave my eyebrow for 1K? I mean, my eyebrows are quite honestly fucked right now. Like they need a grooming beyond proportion right now, in my opinion. They're all jacked up. I used to, believe it or not, when I would get a haircut, I would get a buzz cut all the way down to like a 1. And then I had the barber for like, you know, a couple years of high school. I had him shave down the eyebrows, trim them up, and do all that. And that's how they ended up this way, all wonky and jacked up. So no, I probably wouldn't shave one of my eyebrows for 1K. We can do this, right? We got to have confidence. Maybe if you said, would I shave my eyebrows for 10K subs? Probably. 5K, that's definitely a conversation. But 1K, so it's really just 400 something subs? Nah, I don't think I could do it, Chew. But you're getting close. You're getting closer to things that I would probably do for 1K subs. Paul says you can buy subscribers. Yes, you absolutely can. Talk to Nick Shine about that. Not saying he bought subscribers for himself, but he has bought other content providers on this platform subscribers to get them monetized for their channel. Let's see what else we got. Would I dye the beard green? I don't know if this is a, oh, you're calling this a goat beard. Damn, you're not even saying it in a nice way, Indy. You're saying I look like a billy goat or something. Maybe I would dye it green because then it'll wash out right after a couple days or weeks. It wouldn't be permanent. But yeah, I would paint the beard green. Thanks for saying it looks like a goat. I appreciate that. All right. Anything else in the chat here? We're just over 40 minutes. Again, if you are just tuning in, I see a bit of a viewership spike. We had Antwan Staley on for the first half hour. I appreciate him giving us his insights on training camp. So definitely go back and listen to that one. Obviously hit the like button. Didn't say that at the top. Hit the like button, subscribe. We're on the road to 1K. We're trying to get there before the home opener against the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1. I would love to make that happen. I would also love to get monetized, so I still need more watch hours on the channel. I'm about halfway to the watch hours, so if you guys want to, just throw on one of my shows on a loop and fall asleep and let it play and give me a couple more extra hours of YouTube watch time. I would be greatly appreciative of that. I know this community is going to get me where we want to be sooner rather than later. And I do think the Jets being good is going to be a contributor for that. It's just going to be like accelerant on a fire, right? For every content guy or girl out there in the Jets community. If the Jets are even halfway decent this season, I think we're all going to be flooded with a new group of listeners, which is always going to be great. I don't see any more chats in here that I have not clicked on already. Pat's 12 telling me to do it the humble way. I appreciate it, man. I think you still need to find a Patriots channel that provides you with enough content. I mean, it's truly incredible how we have a Patriots fan who Richie said you're on his channel. Jake, you're obviously on his channel. And now you found your way to mine, which I'm happy about. But also, what the hell are we doing, man? You got to be able to find some Patriots stuff to vibe with here. Paul with another chat. He says, maybe you have explained this before. What's up with all the Kobe Bryant love up on the shelf? I was always a big Kobe fan. Yeah, I was also a big Kobe fan. Still am a big Kobe fan, obviously, even though he has passed. I bought those 2 magazines up here in the corner. This is probably 2 or 3 months after he passed away. I bought 2 Kobe magazines and a Kobe jersey that I have hanging in the closet. Just I wanted my fair share of Kobe merch. I feel like it's unfortunate, but in that situation, I didn't pay enough respect to the person when they were alive. So tried to make up for it after he passed, and I got a lot of stuff about him afterward. But I'm starting to do more of that stuff while they're still alive because I feel like these people need to be celebrated while they're still here on Earth. And obviously, he left this Earth way too soon. Him and his daughter Gigi. Incredibly sad. Very sad day. I still remember it almost like it was, just a couple months ago, sitting in my room and I got the alert and you almost think it's fake, right? You don't want to hear something like that. And then the rumors come out about, it's his whole family on the helicopter. And then we get the news that it's him and his daughter. And obviously, regardless of what family members were with him at the time, it was going to be sad. But when it was his daughter who had such a bright future ahead of her, it definitely makes it that much sadder. Paul coming in with another chat. I appreciate you asking a ton of questions here, Paul. I will answer all of them. How many Senior Bowls have you been to? So, yeah, you can see right here, there's just a large grouping of lanyards here. This is the most recent one from 2025, earlier this year. I've been to 4. 2022 was the year that the Jets were there. And I remember October, maybe, of 2021, when it was Salah's first regime, I said, look, this is the criteria that got the Lions to the Senior Bowl the year before. They had a returning coach. They had a young quarterback. I think they didn't have a young quarterback at the time, but they had a returning coach and they had doubled their win total from the year prior. So the Jets in 2021, they won 2 games. They had 4 wins at the end of 2022. So like all the criteria was kind of lining up for them to be the team at the Senior Bowl. And then they ended up being the team. And I reached out to Phil, the owner of Jet Nation, and I just said, hey, man, I don't know what the odds of us getting accepted are, but let's try it, right? Let's just reach out. Molly Middleton from the Senior Bowl, she's great rep. She's fantastic every year. She just does so much for us, and we just applied for media credentials, and I was accepted. So 2022 was the first year I got to see the coaching staff in its entirety up close and personal. They didn't continue that. Now they do bits and pieces of each coaching staff, and they take a lot of under the radar positional coaches, and they just take from multiple teams now. So the Jets might have a backup running back coach, at Senior Bowl, but you're not going to see the full thing like we did in 2022. So that was cool to be a part of that one. And then ever since then, it's just kind of been the floodgates open, and a lot of content creators go to the Senior Bowl now. I've met so many great Jets content creators. Richie from Jets Media, I met last year. That was awesome. I met him at the merch table, actually. I was buying a hat. So it's definitely a fun experience, but this year will be year 5 for me. It's kind of crazy to think about, but we're going on year 5. Eli again, he says, let's see what's in the golf bag. I promise you, Eli, maybe that's what I'll do tomorrow. I have Matt O'Leary coming on at 7. I'm going to do the same format. I'm going to do about a half hour with Matt, or however long he has to hang out, 45 minutes, whatever he has. And then I'll hang out with you guys afterward for about 15, 20 minutes. And I'll make sure I bring my golf bag inside tonight. And we can discuss what's in the bag. Paul says I'm clearly a halfway decent content creator. I appreciate it, Paul. You're halfway decent yourself there with your Boy Green dailies and your man child shows. You are certainly pumping out the content, and I can't wait for this season. What can we collect of mine while I'm still alive? Well, once I figure it all out, we can all have some DT merch to rock right here, Paul. If you want one of these DT shirts, I have an exclusive pullover hoodie right here, but this is probably going to be a one of one for now. Oh, as my screen goes blurry, this is probably going to be a one of one hoodie for now until I figure out getting it down to a price point that I think everybody's going to be happy with. So yeah, if you want to collect some DT shirts, send me your size and your address, Paul, and I'll definitely send one over to you. MF Chu, he says no other teams have content creators. I've looked. TD is the only notable one. Yeah, I'm sure nobody is as saturated in the market like Jets fans, so it probably is a little bit more difficult. But I mean, there's plenty. Like there's Locked On Patriots. I know. I'm sure Patriots 12 has tried all these and still comes back to us. And yeah, like he says, there's no Jake or Dylan of New England. I appreciate that. I'm not going to say I'm anywhere close to what Jake can do on these live streams, but I do appreciate that. And no, there is no New England version of me, I'm sure, losing his cockies and his cockies. So appreciate that. Rich says, thanks, DT. Great job. Jet the F up. Absolutely, man. I am so excited to finally get football content tomorrow. Reacting to day one of training camp. I promise Matt and I aren't going to overreact to a single thing. I promise you that. No, there will certainly be plenty of time for overreactions and underreactions too. I think the first time Connor Hughes tweets out Justin Fields practice stats, I'm going to be incredibly disgusted, not by the results or the stats themselves, but just the fact that this is where we are coaching or doing the quarterback stats of August. But also, I'm going to be extremely pumped up because football's back, baby. So I can't complain if they want to tell me Justin Fields was 3 for 6 for 2 touchdowns in practice. You know, football is just getting that much closer. Papa Jet with another question. He says, at DT, what took you to South Carolina? As long as it isn't personal. No, I mean, obviously it's a little personal, right? It's my life, but at the same time, it's not that personal. I was at my brother's wedding, and at the time, I think she was my girlfriend. Then we got married, and now we're divorced. But we were just dating at the time, and my friend's dad was at the wedding, and he knew that we were looking to move, and we weren't entirely, we weren't 100% on staying in New Jersey, right? We were looking at areas in eastern Pennsylvania. We were looking at some areas in New Jersey. We looked at Greensboro, North Carolina, where my brother lives. We looked at Colorado Springs, I think Pagosa or Durango, a couple places in Colorado we went on vacation to look at. And then we came to South Carolina and we stayed, I think, in Greenville. So not exactly Spartanburg, but Greenville is where the BMW dealer warehouse is, the Michelin warehouse. So a lot of industry, a lot of warehouse jobs. And that was an attractive point for me. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do work-wise. I was still in construction. And we felt like after 4 days of visiting, there was still so much left to explore. So later that year, I think it was the end of 2018, we moved from New Jersey to South Carolina. And then I started writing for Jet Nation like a couple months later. I was in between jobs trying to find a job down in South Carolina. And I just reached out and I said, hey, I want to write for a Jets fan site. And Jet Nation took me on. My first article was actually writing about Adam Gase being hired as the Jets head coach. But then we lived there for 3 years. I moved back to New Jersey in 2021. And then, as you guys know, a couple months ago, I just moved back to Spartanburg. So I kind of did Jersey, South Carolina, Jersey, South Carolina, flip-flop back and forth. But at first it was the work opportunities. And then it was just the cost of living opportunity. It was getting a little bit expensive to keep the lights on in New Jersey and South Carolina. I mean, it's gotten more expensive, but I think it's still a very reasonable price for what you're getting out of the area. And it's just a hotter version of New Jersey, in my opinion. The landscape here is great. The mountains are great. I'm about an hour away from, the Blue Ridge Mountains in, I think, what is that, Asheville? So, excuse me. I think the landscape and the feel, the vibe of South Carolina, at least the upstate, gave me the same kind of vibes that New Jersey does when you're, you know, in the wooded areas of New Jersey, not the city life of New Jersey. I'm not a big city guy, so I thought a lot of things were similar, and then you got better weather and cheaper living. So let's see what else. Indy Jet says, do a poll on if they would buy a D t-shirt. That's a good idea, Indy. And I'm not going to do a poll in the live stream unless I set one up early on so I get enough votes. But I will make a post on YouTube. That's a good idea. Just gauging interest in shirts, because if I can get an order of 10 or 20 t-shirts, I'll certainly start pumping them out and getting them to you guys. So poll on shirts is certainly something I will do. Thank you, Indy, and I appreciate all your help behind the scenes trying to make these shirts come to life. Let's see here. All right, we'll do a couple more. New Q has a question. This is kind of a funny one. Have you thought of a name for the listeners? Terabytes, can't do Terramaniacs, Terminators, like your family name. Yeah. I guess no, I have not thought about this yet. And this is all part of the, I guess, like administrative work of the YouTube side of it, right? When I wanted to create this channel, I was like, yeah, I can just stand here in front of my webcam and my mic and talk to you guys for hours on end about Jets content. But I never really, I guess, invested time into thinking about the things like that. The titles of a show. We're on episode 7 and I still don't have a title. It took me a long time to get this logo, and I honestly had to send one to Gator and have him, church it up a little bit to get to what we have now. So the creative side of it is still a work in progress. I can certainly give you content, but no, I have not given thought to a listener name. I would like to field some ideas. So you had a couple good ones there. Terabytes is kind of hilarious. But no, I have not given thought to a lot of the administrative, creative things with the channel. Let's see. Patriots 12. What are you going on about? You're going on about Curtis Martin? We stole Curtis Martin? I don't think we stole him. I'm pretty sure I was 3 years old at the time. I'm pretty sure you guys didn't want him and we signed him in free agency, or we traded for him. Like, you guys got rid of Curtis Martin. It's not like Curtis Martin was, wanted to be a Patriot for life or anything like that. I'm just very confused. Papa Jet says Dylan's villains. That's actually funny, and I'll give you a little bit more of a personal story here. When I was in high school, I thought I was some badass kid, and me and all my friends, we were in this like rap group, and D Villain was always my name. So like that's my name on like Xbox and stuff like that. So Dylan's villains would actually be hilarious. I'm glad that era of my life is behind me though. Dylan's dedicated dudes, the triple D's. Oh, wait, never mind. We're immediately off that, Paul. I appreciate the idea, but we're immediately off that as soon as I said it out loud. That was definitely not a good one. Oh, shit, that's funny. MC Maisie, definitely not. We're not going to use that suggestion there. I'm not even going to say it, but no, absolutely not with that suggestion. Let's see. Any more comments we got here? We're almost at the hour mark. Nope. I think that's just about it. So I do appreciate everybody tuning in. We're right about at the hour mark. We had some really good viewership. I am going to be back tomorrow. You guys know that. 3rd day in a row. Matt O'Leary on the channel. 7 p.m. We're going to be breaking down, reacting to all the news, all the tweets, all the the videos of players walking out to practice. We are going to cover it all in its entirety. I'm really excited to get Matt on the channel. Matt is somebody who has really helped me throughout this process. Just leaning on him, asking him questions about the way he conducts his business. And I emulate a lot of things that he does on this channel, as you probably know. Him, Jake, BG, Tyson, Buffalo, all these guys, Nick Shine, Green Bean, every single one of these guys has really been a huge help for me getting my feet, wet with this whole thing and getting into this space. So I appreciate all those people. I appreciate every single one of you guys for tuning in. Hit the like button on your way out. Please smash that subscribe button. We're almost there, right? We got to get the watch hours, but I know we'll get the subscriber count up. Eli, I see you again. DT, I'm in the Discord. You can send your golf bag there. No, I think it'll be cool to spend a couple minutes and break it down live on the show. I don't want to make that a Discord thing. We can definitely do that on the show tomorrow. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. I will be back tomorrow, 7 p.m. Set your calendars. Right after Jake gets off, we should be going live with Matt O'Leary. Appreciate everybody tuning in. This is the last time you're going to hear from me before the Jets take the practice field. So we are officially back. Football is here. I will talk to you all tomorrow. And until next time, let's go Jets.